You're listening to the Fierce Fatty Podcast, episode 39. I'm your host, Victoria Wellesby, and today we are sharing Susie's story from ashamed and obsessed to certified fierce fatty. Let's do it!
Perfect.
You're listening to the Fierce Fatty Podcast. I'm Victoria Wellesby, TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and fat activist. I have transformed my life from hating my body with desperately low self-esteem to being a courageous and confident fierce fatty who loves every inch of this jelly. Society teaches us living in a fat body is bad, but what if we spent less time, money, and energy on the pursuit of thinness and instead focused on the things that actually matter, like if pineapple on pizza should be outlawed, or if the mullet was the greatest haircut of the 20th century. So, how do you stop negative beliefs about your fat body controlling your life? It's the Fierce Fatty Podcast. Let's begin. Welcome to this episode. I have a special one for you today because I have a guest, and the guest is someone who enrolled and completed my e-course, Fierce Fatty Academy. I don't know why I don't tell you about things. I keep everything secret, but I don't often talk about Fierce Fatty Academy. It is my the only way that you can work with me. It is my my e-course, and more often than not, it's not available to buy. So when you're listening to this episode, you're probably not going to be able to enroll in it. But if you want to be notified of when it's available, then go to the waitlist. So fiercefatty.com/waitlist, or I'm going to put the link in the shout outs. Yeah, so you can find it. Can you hear those crows squawking outside? I've opened the window because I'm so fucking hot. Yeah, so hopefully no tractor goes by. But I've already recorded the episode that's coming with Susie, and she is great. And some of the things that she achieved after enrolling in Fierce Fatty Academy is bananas. Like when she shared them, like I knew about them before this episode, but I was just like, what? Who are you? Who are you? And her transformation was so quick. Like, because a lot of people, they get to a place where they're like, fuck this. I am so done with this bullshit of hating my body and dieting. And those people are the ones that are the most successful doing this work because they're like, I've had it. I'm done. Like they've hit the final straw or rock bottom or whatever. And they work to get the results because they are fucking tired of the bullshit. And I know a lot of people listening are tired of hating themselves and thinking that they should diet. So yeah, we've got Susie's story today, and I think that you're going to resonate with a lot of things that Susie experienced and felt about her body, and hearing about her transformation is really inspiring. It's made me feel really good and inspired and excited, and thinking about all the positive in the world, that the impact that anyone who does this work can make is, it's amazing. It's so good. So here we go. Enjoy Susie's story. And if you want to know when Fierce Fatty Academy is open, go to fiercefatty.com/waitlist or click the link in the show notes. So welcome, Susie. I'm so pleased that you're here today on the Fierce Fatty Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Why I wanted you on the show is because you had an incredible journey, mind-blowing, like some of the stuff that you've done. And so, but you weren't always like that. And I think it's really important to show how you went from where you were to where you are now, and that it is possible, and share someone else's story apart from mine, because it's not always about me. You're now a certified fierce fatty, but you weren't always. So let's start at the beginning of your story and your childhood, and how you felt about yourself then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was a tall child. I was one of the tallest in my school. But that didn't seem too bad, I also had big feet, still have big feet, and I had to go to special shop for my shoes, but my feet were long and narrow, so that was okay. So the first memory I have of knowing that there was something wrong, in inverted commas, with my body was when I was about 10, I think it was. I was still at junior school, and I heard my teacher talking to another teacher walking in the corridor behind me, and they said, "That Susie's really hippie, isn't she?" And I knew at that age that wasn't a compliment. And it's so scary. I'm 46, and I have not forgotten. I can take myself back to that moment, and I can hear the words. I know exactly the words that were said, and that really left a mark on me. So I say I was 10. And about that time as well, I was aware I had this favourite grey straight skirt, long skirt with a split up the back. That was the fashion in the 80s. My favourite skirt, but I was aware that it was the same clothes size as my auntie was wearing, an adult, and I was 10. So yeah, it started from there really, and the shame gradually built about my body, and I quickly learned that being big as a girl was not a good thing, and that it wasn't feminine to be good. I was just too big, and it was confirmed. Most things I did a lot of dancing, and I was one of the biggest girls there. I did a gang show, where scouts and guides get together and do a show with singing and dancing, and I knew that I was looking at the top end sizing for the costumes. So I learned quickly that getting clothes to fit me was going to be hard. I couldn't just go, oh, like for fancy dress or something, I'd like to wear that. It was an issue, the clothes. So that was it really, from that experience, age 10, where someone planted the seed that my body wasn't right. I then quickly received loads of other messages as well, that I was too big as a girl.
That is horrifying, saying you're too hippie, and hear, like, what are these people thinking, like, when they make comments about anyone's bodies, but then about children's bodies? Like,
I know, and from a teacher, my teacher, someone you trust, and I could hear them so clearly. They were just behind me. I don't know how they thought I wasn't going to hear them, but like you say, probably didn't think about what they're saying. But that has left a mark on me, and that I'll always remember that. I have a sort of different feeling about it and way of dealing with it, but I won't forget those words.
No doubt. I wouldn't, absolutely. And so how was, you had that one, that comment, and then, you started hearing other things too. And so your family environment, were they neutral around body? Were they fat phobic or diet culture, or what was that like?
Yeah, I'm basically one of, or if not the biggest, I'm the biggest female, but one of the biggest people in my family in terms of build. But I don't remember there being much negativity, particularly towards my body from my family. My mum wasn't, as far as I'm aware, she wasn't dieting or anything, at that stage, and she was quite happy in her body, but she's in a very different body to me. But most of my messaging came from television, films, magazines, in those days. I can remember, because of my scale, the size of my frame, I can remember when I was watching Neighbours, and I just wanted to be like Kylie Minogue in Neighbours, because she was so like dainty and petite, and she could just wear anything she wanted, and life just seemed so much easier for her. And we're literally extremes, me and Kylie Minogue, probably, in terms of our build.
Yeah.
But I just thought life seemed so much easier for her, to be honest, in terms of clothes and things.
Mm-hmm. And so what about food and the way that you related to food as a young person? Do you think that was a quote unquote normal relationship with food at that point?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I really enjoyed food. It was comforting. It was fun. I do remember I've always been able to eat quite a lot of food and drink a lot of liquid. I remember there's a photograph of me when I'm about 2, and remember my mum telling me I could drink like pints of orange squash, when I was a young child. I've always consumed a lot of liquid, and I've always been able to eat a lot of food, and I've enjoyed food. But again, I learned very, young that wasn't a good thing either. That's not feminine. To do that, to want to have an appetite like that, and to want to eat. So I had those messages swirling around as well. And I learned, like most people, what were good foods and what were bad foods, in inverted commas. But, you pick those up young.
Yeah. Isn't it so interesting how, as a child, like, so I have a nibbling who is 3 years old, and he, if he's got a big appetite, or if he doesn't, it's just kind of like, oh, if he has a big appetite, it's like, wow, cool, you eat all the food and you drink stuff, and oh, you must be thirsty today, or whatever. Not that I comment on what he's eating, but this is what we think about children. But then at what stage does it become like, oh, look at Susie drinking pints of orange juice, to, oh, look at Susie drinking pints of orange juice? Like, at what point do we decide, oh, we're going to shame our children? Not necessarily say that your family does, but society in general. Where does that switch happen? It's just bizarre, really.
Yeah. And I think it's often associated with, if your body is, again, inverted commas, a problem, then people start to like examine your behaviours, don't they, and think that must be the cause of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's like that, the whole thing of seeing a straight sized person on the internet saying, oh, I'm going to eat 20 burgers, and people being like, oh my god, I want her to be my girlfriend and stuff. But then if a fat person did that, then it'd be like, oh my god, well, that's why you're fat, or whatever. So age 10, things started you started thinking about your body because people were talking about it very rudely. How did things progress for you in your teenage years?
Yeah, so I was aware I was big, basically bigger than other people. And I think, as is natural and as is the point, during puberty, I put weight on, as my body developed. And I wasn't an early developer. I'm talking about age 15, 16 here. And so I gradually, didn't want to show my body. And as I say, getting clothes that I felt okay in out of the choice of the shops, that I was going to, was hard. So it was a challenge to dress, challenge to feel good. So I started covering up my body and things, and I was worried what people thought about my body, what people thought about me. So yeah, that shame really just built over those teenage years, and I wasn't happy with my body.
Yeah. And so when did you first start to try to manipulate the size of yourself?
I was 18, so a couple of years later, basically I just took it upon myself. I didn't follow a special diet or formulation from anybody else. I just basically restricted my food. I knew you think, how did I know that? I must have seen somewhere. I restricted my food, and I'd always been quite active, but I did a really strict exercise regime, so the two together, but there was a lot of restricting with the food. And basically, obviously, my body changed. I also had my hair cut short at that stage, so I looked slightly different, but it was like a different image. And I got all the compliments. People were very quick to say, oh, you look so good, or you've done so well, and good for you, that one. So yeah, I got the attention, and that felt good, obviously, particularly at that age.
Yeah, no doubt. Like, especially if all of those years, like 8 years from the time you start to notice your body and feel bad about it, to do something and then seem to turn everything around, quote unquote, and get all that love and praise. And so you became smaller. Obviously, it didn't last because diets don't work. So what happened then?
Yeah, so I was a brilliant dieter. I have been, I mean, I've yo-yo dieted for 26 years, started then, went up to age 44. And so, yeah, brilliant dieter, so much willpower. I'm all for it, can keep on until I can't, because my body wins. It's like wanting to be fed. I was so hungry, so deprived of food, and so yeah, my body would win over, and because of all the restriction I would completely go the other way and I would binge, because I was so hungry and I hadn't allowed myself to eat loads of things, and I just did that for so many years, and I really didn't think that there was another way of being. I was sort of torn between the control. I liked the control of the food because it felt like my life was in control and my body was in control, and it's quite addictive, that feeling, isn't it, of knowing what you're eating and knowing that you're getting smaller, that sort of addictive side to it. So yeah, and I could go into clothes shops and buy clothes. Most clothes shops, I'm at the top end though, by the way, then. And I was, that at that stage, I was one of the thinnest I've ever been. I've been back there many times. But yeah, I could go into clothes shops. So that felt good. But my life was so restricted. I was following such a strict regime. I was obsessed. There was no fun, no joy in my life. I was so serious and so self-obsessed as well, because all I could really think about was myself and my body and what I was doing. It takes over your whole life. Literally, you have no energy, or you can't take in anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And so when you were your smallest, when you could go and shop in stores, what did you think of your body then? Was it a good body or no?
No, I mean, it was better, shall we say. So I was happier with my body in terms of, what I saw and looked in the mirror, and I knew that there was an ease to the shopping and things, and that felt good. But at the time, it's never enough. So I wasn't like loving my body. I wasn't feeling great about my body by any means, because you just want to keep on going further and further. And as I say, psychologically, I was in the biggest women's clothes size in some of the shops at that time. So I was still big in my mind, so there must be further to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not happy with my body. So I was going through all that and wasn't really happy with it anyway. I certainly wasn't happy in my life because of all the restriction, but I wasn't even that happy with my body.
Mm-hmm. And so what types of impact did that have on your life, that kind of constantly having to monitor your food intake and your weight and think about your body? Like you mentioned it takes away your life and stuff. Can you think of any things that you missed out on, or things that you didn't do because of the way that you felt about yourself?
I pretty much did things, I think, that I wanted to, but it was always there in the background. I didn't fully enjoy the things that I was doing because I was worried. So, I may have gone on a holiday with friends, but I would be looking for the sarong or the cover-ups, and, so I found a way round things so that I was able to live my life, because I've done that from quite young. So I carried on living my life, but that it was always there in the background. Whatever my food habits were at the time, whatever my size were, it was always there. My body was always in the forefront of my mind of whatever activity was involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like this weight, well, literally, that's on your shoulder, just constantly there, just making everything just a little bit shitter or a little bit more anxiety provoking or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. Much harder. Things are much harder. Like if you go to something with friends, like a group of friends when you were young, and something's like one size or something, and you don't know if it's going to work, that's really hard. Even like tights or something, or if you fancy dress and there's tights, I'm tall and I've got a bigger frame, they weren't going to fit me. And so I always was I just wanted to fit in these one size. I just wanted to find it easy for things to fit me, so I was trying to change to make these one size things fit me, but that's the thing, and that's the message, isn't it? You're wrong because you don't fit in these things. And that's what I believed. for a long time.
Mm-hmm. What else did you believe about people who had bigger bodies, like those negative self-beliefs, or those kind of secret things now you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I used to think that about fat people?
I bought into the idea that if you worked hard enough, you could change your body. I never questioned the fact that people's bodies could be so different. You know, they could be behaving in the same way as somebody else and then would have a very different outcome. So I thought, you know, there must be a way that you just put the effort in, deprive yourself, and then, you know, but I know there's no thin body in me. I know that now. But you are encouraged to believe by, you know, our culture, by society, that if you work hard enough, you can, you know, you can be thin, you can have that body. And so I believed it for so long. I can't believe it. It seems crazy now that I believed that, but I did. I just thought that my life was just going to be one large diet, or, you know, diet, not, you know, sort of yo-yoing all my life, just constantly chasing this body that I was never going to have even.
Isn't it interesting, after 26 years and you never really got you know, the body that you're like, okay, now I've made it, that the power of fat phobia and the power of the dream of thinness kept you going for that many years?
Yeah. And I've mentioned to you before, you know, I've done a selection of diets, but I've done serious diets, VLCDs, the very low calorie diets, where I was eating no food. So I was, you know, as thin as I could maybe be in my body. And I had complications after gallstone surgery. And after that, I went back to it more than once. You know, I mean, dieting is probably the unhealthiest thing I've ever done. The yo-yo dieting, particularly, and nothing good came out of dieting. You know, It doesn't make you feel better. It doesn't make you feel better about your body, and, you know, it's very damaging to your body.
Yeah. And so, what did it feel like, or what did you believe about yourself when you did, when your willpower was stretched to breaking point, and then you stopped the diet and then began, you know, binging or eating food, just eating some food? Like, what did you think about yourself and believe about yourself?
Well, I felt like I'd failed, definitely failed, that, you know, there was something I'd done wrong because I couldn't carry on with the diet. So, and it's the shame, I think, you know, the shame for me of, because I fluctuated 5 clothes sizes, you know, all my life, up and down. If someone saw me at one stage and then saw me a few months later, I could look very different. And the shame of that is huge.
Did anyone ever say anything like, oh, you've put on weight? Or
no, nobody ever said that, but I could tell. You know, you're sensitive, aren't you, to people? And I could, you know, it was obvious that my physical appearance had drastically changed, and not just once. That was the thing for me. The added shame was not that happened once, was that happened time and time again.
Yeah. And so did people compliment you when you lost weight after the weight putting on?
Yeah, definitely.
So you knew time. Yeah. So you knew that they were checking your body and they were noticing your weight, but they would only say something when it was, you know, a good thing and you were thin.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no one ever said it was a bad thing to diet, and all the things. I mean, occasionally I, you know, did be doing something thought something was a bit silly food wise, but generally dieting was, you know, that sort of behavior was very accepted, because that disordered eating basically is accepted, isn't it? It's okay to do that. Everyone's like, oh, you know, you want to diet again, that's just normal. You know, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, right. And really, you know, the act of dieting is, like you mentioned, is there's so many deeply disordered things in there, and now both of us can see it. And so if we ever talk to someone who's dieting, it's kind of like bizarre and like, what? This is not good for your health and your mental health, and oh my gosh. So so no one ever said to you, oh, Susie, you're great being big, or you're great just the way you are, or anything like that? You were kind of encouraged?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't encouraged to lose weight by my family, but as I said, you know, that we didn't really discuss my body. I think my parents at sometimes were a bit worried about, you know, the diets that I was doing. But generally, my message just came from, you know, the world we live in more generally. I think because I was 18 when I first took action, you know, about my body. So I was sort of moving out of home and things then. But definitely, yeah, from the society at large.
And so you got married and now have children. And so what was that like? What was it like being in a partnership and having children and not liking what you looked like?
When I was actually pregnant, it was great because it was like I didn't have to worry. It was, you know, definitely not a good thing to diet when you're pregnant, even in the world we live in now. So that was like almost a break. Where I didn't feel like I had to put that pressure on myself or anything. I was actually extremely sick, particularly with my first child. So I barely ate anything when I was pregnant, and I felt awful. But yeah, after I had the baby, there's all the pressure to lose weight and look a certain way, and that's really heavy because having a baby is huge. You know, it's really challenging. In so many different ways. It changes your relationship with your husband. It just changes your life. You're the first child and the second child as well. So, but my body, yeah, obviously my body changed. I put on weight in pregnancy, and then particularly in the second pregnancy afterwards, I really didn't feel good about my body. I wasn't feeling good about myself. I didn't know particularly who I was, and I'd completely lost control basically with my body, because I say that time when I was pregnant, I gave myself the time off, but then I'd lost control. You know, I didn't know, my body was doing its own thing of things I didn't know about, particularly the first time. So, yeah.
And what was it like with your husband? Like, was he like, oh my God, you're smoking hot? Or, you know, did you accept that he was attracted to you and wanted to be with you and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, I've never questioned that with my husband. I think he's in a body that also changes and fluctuates. And interestingly, you know, we obviously, because we live together, if I'm eating a certain way, that tends to affect him. I'm not sure, he's never said he's unhappy with it, but, you know, that's just the way it's been, you know, when I was dieting. So, but, you know, it was more the pressure I was putting on myself than anything. It was how I felt. And when you feel a certain way, you behave differently, don't you? You know, no matter what actual, you know, messages you're getting from anyone else, if you feel a certain way, and then that obviously affects our relationship, because I was so self-conscious about my body.
And so because you were self-conscious, it would be harder for him to really experience you and get close to you and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I was so disconnected from my body and from myself, really. I was so, you know, when, as I say, dieting takes over your whole life, it leaves very little room for anything else. And it certainly doesn't leave room for that connection, at least not for me, because, you know, you're so guarded about this aim that, and you're very much looking to the future, so you're not interested in the now, because, you know, you're not right yet. So
yeah, like, and then in the future when you're thin, then, you know, all this magical things were going to happen. So did you notice your kids picking up on any kind of messages around body and food at all?
No, I haven't, which I'm grateful for. Luckily, you know, when I was doing those severe diets, my children were quite young, and so, I mean, they may have picked things up, but not, you know, in a very obvious way. And I've got a teenage daughter now. She's 14, and you know, that's a really hard age, as we know, for children. And even though I know what I know, I'm her mum, and it's just me against the world. So I'm hoping that things are all going to work out well, but it's hard, and it's almost harder that I know what I know, and it breaks my heart, some of the things that I know she's taken on board, you know.
Oh, really? Like, what types of things has she taken on board?
Well, now with the social media and things and all the filters, so it's not just that your body's not good enough, is it? It's like in photos, you know, and all the changes and things that happen. to your body when you're a teenager. You can put the filters on, and then that's the image that they see of themselves, you know. And when they print photos out with their friends, there's often a filter, so it's even more complicated. And she's definitely aware of, you know, different builds of friends and things, and there's just so much pressure on teenagers, aren't there? I mean, my son also, I think there's more pressure these days, but for girls it is really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. It just makes me, I wonder how, because we're seeing, like, this is a new generation going through this, how it's going to affect us, you know, children and humans in the future. Did you know that you can get a filter which changes your face on video, and so you can be on video and your face could be completely different, literally a different face. Like, there was I can't remember which country, I think it was China. There was a woman who was some sort of did gaming or something, and the face that she had on was of this stereotypically attractive person, but then it glitched, and then it turned out that it was an older woman, and then she lost all of her fans. But, you know, that it's just really interesting, you know, and scary how technology is changing the way that we view ourselves.
It is so scary, because we know, and I know from my experience, that you can't accept yourself if you're constantly trying to change yourself. So all the time you've got those options to look different and be different. It's very, very hard to accept yourself as you are, isn't it? Like, and that even includes your face. You know, I mean, it's very scary.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously something changed, and something happened to make you think, you know, this is not working for me. And what was that?
Basically, in my early 40s, I began to feel really quite lonely and lost. And I was starting to ask myself, you know, is this it? Is this my life? I was exhausted by dieting by that point, and I was just sick and tired of fighting my body. I was also fed up with chasing perfectionism and trying to please other people, to the point that I just didn't know who I was anymore. You know, I was really feeling like, underneath all of that, you know, who am I? So I was really lost. And basically I found my way, because I think you have to be at that point where you can't go on. These days, in the way we're living, with the power of all the messages and where it gets, you have to be at the point where you're like, I literally can't do this anymore. So, you know, that was the point I was at. I couldn't necessarily isolate it to my body, but I was just like, this is not the way I want to live anymore. There's just no joy, no enjoyment, so serious. And yeah, I just didn't want to live like that anymore.
That must have been so hard to recognize that, and also change, because your whole adult life you'd been doing this. Like, that's just, to be able to recognize it and make a change is phenomenal.
Yeah, I think I was just so ready. I was basically craving something that was real. You know, I was craving connection with myself. You know, when I say I wasn't sure who I was really craving to connect to Susie, aside from all those other behaviours, and I was craving connection with other people as well. I just wanted something real. That's the sort of way I can explain it, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I guess you were, you know, never being your authentic self, because you were constantly trying to change who you were.
Yeah, definitely. And I was the perfectionism and always trying to, you know, chase something, and feeling like, you know, you have to do something else to be happy. So whether that's dieting, spending money, you know, I've done all the things. And so I was basically ready to let that go and go within myself, you know, to find the answers. Obviously I had to find what that looked like, because I didn't know then. I just knew that I didn't want that anymore.
Yeah. So you obviously enrolled in Fierce Fatty Academy, and that is why I know you. So yay for knowing you and being in Fierce Fatty Academy. So what made you decide to do Fierce Fatty Academy?
Well, basically, because I had to find that existed, you know, from the point that I was at. So I basically ended up finding out about the Mind, Body, Spirit publisher, Hay House, and I went on the Louise Hay sort of self-love journey, and I started to connect to myself. So I started to be kinder to myself. And then I enrolled in a coaching course, which is something that I've always wanted to do. And on that course, I basically worked on letting go of the perfectionism and being my real self, you know, being my authentic self. And while on that course, I think it was body image coach or something, I Googled, and I ended up finding your TED talk. And I was like, what? You know, literally, I had no idea. And I loved your talk. I loved your energy, your confidence. And so I looked you up from your TED talk. But your TED talk was like, you know, literally so foreign to me. I just had no idea that there was another way to be, you know, other than the way that I'd been living my life.
Yeah. I remember that moment too. For me, it was watching, going to Reagan Chastain's website, Dances with Fat, and I was like, what? What is this magical world that I've never even known that existed? So did you have any hesitations about joining Fierce Fatty Academy and doing the work?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at that stage, because I think my latest diet, you know, most recently had been a gluten-free vegan, and I thought I wasn't dieting, you know, until we discussed some of the behaviours that I still had then, you know, like my Fitbit, and I was restricting my food, but I had no idea that I was doing that. And of course, for me, having, you know, eaten in a very disordered way most of my adult life, that was really dangerous for me. So I had to let all that go.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I had hesitations. At that stage, I was worried about putting on weight. I was worried about losing control. I didn't know how I could possibly like my body if I wasn't trying to change it. So I didn't know how that was even going to be possible. And to be honest, I was very scared of the word fat, of labeling myself as fat. I'd never, obviously the word, particularly if you don't know any of your, you know, like lots of people, and you don't have a clue about the messages that you're getting, you know, fat was a bad word, and I'd done everything I possibly could to avoid that word. So, you know, that was quite a big thing for me to enroll in a course called Fierce Fat Academy.
Yeah, that must have been like, wow. And you did it anyway, even though you were like shitting your pants for various different reasons, which were totally legitimate.
Yeah, I just knew. I felt really drawn. I think I watched one of your webinars that before I joined, and I just knew I knew I had to join. I had a really strong, you know, call to join. Mm-hmm. So I knew that all those other things outweighed those fears that I had.
Yeah, amazing. So what were your experiences in Fierce Fatty Academy? What did you achieve?
Oh, lots of things. I mean, it's just so hard to remember back, you know, to this. Like anything, when you've been on a massive journey, it's really hard to think of the things that you did. But yeah, I mean, it starts with lots of little things, doesn't it? So, you know, it's like I chose, one of my goals in the academy was choosing a swimming costume in a style that I wouldn't normally choose. So it was white, predominantly white with blue spots, but also a cut that I wouldn't normally wear, and wearing that to the swimming pool. And then I kind of got a taste for it, because I think it was just so opposite to all the other behaviour. Then it's so freeing, isn't it? You know, to let all that other stuff go is just so freeing, and you feel like really connected to yourself, which is what I was craving. And I went to self-love summit event, and I ended up, and I didn't even plan to do this, I had really not great underwear. Normally if I'm going to do something out of my comfort zone, I'd want to prep and make myself feel as good as I could about it by putting some decent underwear on, but I had like not great knickers, and I think my bra wasn't in great condition. But we got invited as part of the day to go up on the stage and take your clothes off down to your underwear and sing Chesney Hawkes' I Am the One and Only, and I love that song anyway. So I was, and she said at the beginning of her talk that was what she was going to do at the end. So I wasn't sure if I was going to do it, and I just thought, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I something in me just wanted to do it, and I didn't question it too much. And I got up and done it. I got up and I did it. And it's just the feeling that, the liberation and the power, because literally I've taken my own power back of what was taken away from me for so long. And it's a really great feeling.
And so now, like, that stuff is so blooming incredible. Like, when you told me about getting up on stage at that self-love summit in your underwear and dancing and being one of the first to get on stage, I was just like, what? Susie,
I forgot to say that I was one of the first to go. I didn't know whether anyone else was going to come, and stand in front of me.
And you're just like, doing it, don't care about my underwear, like, who cares? Amazing. And so a lot of people will say in that moment, weren't you worried about people judging you?
No, it's a really strange one, actually, because I used to be so judgmental. I was judgmental of myself, I was judgmental of other people, and therefore, I expected to be judged. And even though if I stop and think about it, I'm aware that people may be judging me, I just don't think that way anymore. It's so much more important to me that I feel this good, the way I do about my body, and that I'm free to do these things. I have such a different approach that I just don't think about. I just don't think about it in that same way. I'm not so obsessed with all those, those thoughts. They just don't come as often. Not saying they never come, but
because you're a human being after all. And so how do you relate to food? How many times have you dieted since joining Fierce Fatty Academy?
I haven't, so that would be almost, I think it's nearly coming up for 2 years since I last had that very restricted way. So food is a source of pleasure again, which is such a lovely thing, and I really like eating different foods, and I take a lot of pleasure, and it feels really good to feed myself in a way that my body's asking to be fed, because I'd always denied myself the foods that I fancied, and definitely in the quantities that I needed. So it's really nice to not have those rules, and when I'm hungry and I think I shouldn't be hungry, I think no, I'm hungry, and I'm listening to my body, because obviously, like most dieters, I've ignored the hunger signs for a long time.
And so what do you think of your body now?
I respect it and I accept it, and I love it. I'm on the journey to the loving it, but I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the things that it's done for me and the things that it allows me to do. And I'm trusting it, learning to trust it, and it's learning to trust me. So I feel like I'm sort of in a relationship with it, whereas before I was constantly fighting it and distancing myself from it. I felt like it had let me down massively. I just thought I was just so disappointed with it before. So I have a very different relationship with my body.
Amazing. I love it. And so what is possible for you now that you're not spending your whole life trying to not be fat?
Anything, basically, the things that I really want to do. So one of those was training to be a coach, and also starting my own business, which I never would have had the headspace to do before, because dieting takes over your whole life, doesn't it? It takes a lot of your resources, so your money, time, energy. I mean, I was so invested in dieting, so now I'm just freed up energy wise, and I believe in myself, so I've been able to do things that I've wanted to do, but I was too scared to do and didn't think I could do. And generally I'd say I'm less judgmental. I'm a softer, kinder person. I think I'm a lot less serious, because dieting makes you really serious, I think. I want to have a lot more fun in my life, and living my life now, I'm interested in what I'm going to do later, and the things that are going to make me feel good, rather than thinking that I don't deserve any of those things, and that at some point in the future I might deserve this, that and the other. I feel like I deserve those things now.
Oh, so good, so good. And so it's had a positive impact on your life, but I'm presuming kind of like a side effect is there has been an impact on those around you. What type of impact have you seen with those around you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with my children, I'm much more laid back. Not all the time, obviously, but I've got 2 teenagers. But I'm just try to sort of look at a situation rather than having all these labels and judgments for things, because I had so many shoulds before, because dieting does that to you, doesn't it? Not just about your body. There's so many things, that are right and wrong and should do and shouldn't do. And even things like my daughter's been asking me to dye her hair pink for a little while now. And obviously at the moment, because of the pandemic, she's not at school. So I let her do it. And I didn't even say, I'll come with you and choose the dye, or, try to be really controlling and I'll do it. We said her friends could do it. My husband did end up having to buy a second pack and doing it for her again, because it was a bit patchy. But I just feel like I'm much more easygoing as a person. I'm more forgiving, because I'm more forgiving of myself. I'm more forgiving, of other people. And obviously for my husband, that's had an effect as well on our relationship, because I expect less ridiculous things, of myself. I don't have those ridiculous standards. I approach our relationship and him in a different way as well. And I'm much more up for fun and pleasure, pleasure for food, but pleasure generally. So obviously, that's a really good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Oh my gosh. So could you have imagined, like, when you were in in your 20s and 30s doing all that dieting, that you would be sat here today doing your business? We'll talk about that in a second. Was that a possibility in your brain?
And I just resigned myself to the fact that was my life. I was just going to have to constantly fight, and it was going to be hard, and I was just in a body where I just have to accept that that's hard. I'm not going to be able to easily buy clothes or do things. I'm going to have to worry, if I fit in things like those white plastic chairs. Just so many things, little things were just hard. And I was obviously made to think that they were extremely important, and I just wanted to blend in. So it's very hard to believe that I have found happiness and freedom like I never thought I would, by behaving in a very, very different way.
Because you thought happiness and freedom would come from having a small body. But it's definitely totally different. Amazing. I love it so much. And so now that you said fuck off to diets, you mentioned about your coaching, training to be a coach, and now having your own business. What's the name of your business, and what do you coach about?
So my business is called She is Unapologetic, which I absolutely love. And it just sums up for me, the stopping dieting, but the dropping perfectionism as well, and the people pleasing, and just, going for something that really means something to yourself, and finding yourself again. So basically, I'm a self-love and body confidence coach, and I work with women who don't feel good enough, but have had enough of not feeling good enough, I'd say. So they've had enough of playing small, hiding away. And so I help them basically to rediscover themselves and to reconnect with themselves and accept themselves, including their bodies, but so that they can be free and stand in their truth and be seen, and change the world and do things, a bit like I have been able to do, because
Yeah.
it does free you up, and you can start to think about, what do I actually care about? And this work means a lot to me. I've always wanted to help women in some way, improve the lives of women. I did some work about quite a while ago now as an image consultant, and although I love, clothes are so fun, aren't they? They can make you feel so different, and it's lovely to tune into what you really like, and building your outfits and things. But the work I was doing, there was obviously the shoulds and should nots woven into that, like, you shouldn't wear that, you're with that body type, and this is how you can dress to disguise this bit of you. So that was the nature of the work. So I wasn't comfortable with that even at that stage. So this really feels like work, that I was sort of born to do, really. I'm just so passionate about it, and I really enjoy it. It feels like the real me, and I never would have dared go do the training, or been brave enough to launch my business, to build my website myself, to do all this learning. I just wouldn't have had the capacity for it either.
So exciting. And I think our story is the same, of discovering this stuff and just needing to get it out into the world and say to other people, hey, so that other people can discover you and be like, oh, that one time I read like a blog post that Susie wrote and I was like, oh my God, it's okay to be fat. And then they start their journey, and you just all the good in the world is amazing. So cool. And so your website is sheIsUnapologetic.com.
Yeah, it is.
And your social media is She Is Unapologetic?
It is on Facebook. So my Facebook page is facebook.com/She Is Unapologetic. And on Instagram, I'm Susie Jane Bell, my name. But the links to my social media is on my website. So Perfect. People can contact me via my website as well.
Amazing. Yeah. So there's another resource for you. Make sure you check out Susie's website. And, this is an incredible, so impressive story, because you did it so quickly. Like, it's 2 years since you joined Fierce Fatty Academy, but it wasn't 2 years for you to get to this point. You did it really, really quickly, and you just floored me, which goes to show how coachable and how ready you were for this stuff. And you just did it, saw results, and you're now able to get on with your life and just be fabulous and incredible. So thank you for sharing your story. I really appreciate it, and I know that the listeners will. And thanks for being on Fierce Fatty Academy. Actually, you know what? I realized that I forgot to ask you, because I like people getting to know other sides of humans as well. That and we were going to talk about this too, because another one of the things that you did was around a Michael Ball concert. So I wanted to ask you a fact about you that people might not know, and so people have got to know you a little bit. But share a fact that might involve Michael Ball.
Yeah, so I've always liked Michael Ball. I love musicals. I love Les Mis. So I, knew about Michael Ball a while ago, and he's got a show on BBC Radio 2 as well in the UK, which I love. And he was touring last year, and my husband got tickets to go locally. And he, towards the end of his concert, we were downstairs, not that far from the front. And so he invited people up, I don't think he invited people, I think people just started going up to dance. And I had been to a concert a few months earlier, and I had wanted to stand up and dance and join in, but I didn't. So obviously, I was on my journey. And this concert, I thought, I want to go. I don't care. I was with my husband, but he stayed in the seat. So I just left my bag with him, and I just went to the front and I just danced. Obviously there was other people dancing, but I didn't know them. And I just enjoyed myself. And he sang Love Changes Everything, which I love, and I know all the words to. So I was at the front singing that quite near him and dancing. And he did one of the numbers from Hairspray, because obviously, he's well known for that as well. And it was just fun. pure fun. And I didn't worry what I was wearing, who was looking at me from behind and judging my body. I just wanted to do it, and I enjoyed it. And I'm so glad that I did. I walked away from there, no regrets, wanted to, and, had a great time.
So the love of Michael Ball just gave you even more joy because you were there dancing. And I had that with Kate Nash. Do you remember Kate Nash? She was like she was big like 10 years ago. Yeah, I used to always think, oh, she's fat, but she's so not fat, but ever so slightly chubby sometimes. But anyway, you'd know her music anyway. So I remember when I went to see her, and I was like, fuck it, I don't care. I'm just gonna go and sing and dance, and because I loved her so much. So so there we go. Little fact for you: obsessed with Michael Ball. Yes. All right. Well, thank you for being here, Susie. You're the best.
Thank you for having me, and thank you so much as well for Fierce Fatty Academy and all that I learned in there, because it's changed my life forever. I'm never going back. So I'm really grateful for that. To you.
Oh, thanks, Susie. Well, there we have it, Susie. Oh my gosh. Oh, to think she went on stage in like some ratty old underwear. I was thinking, like, would I have done that in that moment? I don't know. A lot of times I wear like thongs and shit and like see-through stuff. So I don't know. Unless people wanted to see my flaps and my bum hole, then I don't know. But I do like having a dance in my bikini. So yeah, it really shows what is possible when you do this work, when you have a system that you follow to work to overcome. And how many years? 26 years that Susie was on this roller coaster dieting, trying to change her body. 26 years? And then she just turned it around that quickly? I'm like, what? So, I wanted to illustrate how, it is possible. Obviously, but, in case you're tired about hearing about me all the time, then there's Susie. But how could you be tired about hearing about me because I'm a embarrassing? Jokes. Although, but not jokes, because I am amazing. All right, so thank you for hanging out with me today. It has been amazing. And yeah, get on the wait list, and I'll let you know when Fierce Fatty Academy is open again. And you're the best. Okay, see you later, crocodile. In a while, alligator. Bye, Fierce Fatty. Bye.